Name is Mark Ellison. I am a long-haul driver out of Odessa, Texas, sitting in a dead truck at a dark rest area off Interstate 20, talking into an old CB microphone that should not be working but is. If you can hear this, you already know something is wrong with the world, so I will not waste breath pretending this is normal radio. I am parked at the eastbound rest area between Sweetwater and Abilene, the one with the old picnic shelters and the vending machines that never had cold drinks even when they were plugged in. Right now there is no hum, no highway noise, no diesel idle, no wind noise from passing cars, just this voice, a battery on the floor, a CB on a crate, and a whole lot of dark. If you are close enough to hear me, you are somewhere in West or Central Texas. Maybe you are on Interstate 20, maybe on a farm road, maybe sitting in a driveway wondering why your car will not start and why your phone turned into a dead brick. I will tell you what I saw, what I did, and what I think is happening, and if you are smart, you will use it, not just listen. This is not entertainment. This is homework for staying alive. I was rolling east when it hit. Left Odessa late afternoon with a box full of auto parts bound for a distribution center in Dallas. Just another run. Stopped at the Pilot in Big Spring, grabbed coffee and a breakfast burrito even though it was evening, topped off the tanks because habit is habit. I remember checking the dash clock when I pulled back onto the interstate. It said 8:23 in the evening. That was the last working, digital thing I saw tonight. By the time I hit Sweetwater, traffic was thinning. Little clusters of taillights ahead, an occasional set coming up from behind. Sky was clear, moon was thin, West Texas business as usual. I had the regular FM station from Abilene on, some late-night talk show where a guy was arguing about college football schedules. Nothing felt strange. And then every light on the horizon went white for a heartbeat and died. I am not talking about a slow brownout. I mean everything in view flashed bright, like someone snapped a giant camera in the sky and then black. The dash went dead. Radio popped and cut out. Engine coughed once, twice, then quit. The wheel went heavy in my hands. Outside, every taillight ahead of me vanished at the same time. The road did not change. The world did. When you lose an engine in a rig at highway speed, you feel it in your chest. The pull drops, the sound drops, the vibration under your feet changes. I slapped the hazard switch out of reflex and got nothing. No click, no dash light. I stomped the brake, eased the wheel, fought not to jackknife. In the mirrors, I could see the reflection of my trailer sliding straight. No glow from the marker lights. Ahead, some cars were already starting to drift across lanes. Steering still worked. Tires still turned. Physics had not left the building. I let the truck coast, hands tight, eyes blind, except for what my headlights had burned into my brain in the second before they died. It is strange driving in total darkness on a road you know well. You lean on memory. I counted the seconds in my head. 5, 10, 15. When I figured my speed bled off enough, I aimed for the right shoulder, hoping I would not drop off into a ditch. The rumble strip told me I hit it. There is a physical grind under the tires you can feel through the steering column. I rode it, eased off more speed, then felt the truck tilt a little as we rolled onto the shoulder. No emergency lane light show, no glow from anyone else. Just the long hiss of air and the soft thud when I set the parking brake out of habit, even though I knew the valves were probably already dead. The first sound after the engine noise faded was another rig plowing into something behind me. Not a big fireball crash, just a hard metal crunch and then yelling. No sirens, because there was nothing left to power sirens. The whole interstate turned into a graveyard of coasting steel in about 30 seconds. I sat there in the dark cab and tried the key. Nothing. No click, no attempt. Tried the dome light. Dead. Pulled my phone from the mount. Black screen. Held the power button until my thumb hurt. Nothing. Turned on the flashlight I keep clipped to the visor. That worked. Old school batteries. At that point, the part of my brain that reads weird news and prepper forums spoke up. I said the word out loud in the empty cab. Electromagnetic pulse. Texas has storms. Texas has wind. Texas does not have every electronic thing die at the same second over a 100-mile stretch of interstate. That is not random. That is a switch someone threw. I grabbed my jacket, popped the door, climbed down. The night outside felt thicker. No highway roar, no distant rumble, no buzz from the signs, just voices. People yelling, cursing, calling names across the lanes. Headlights that had been steady beams a minute ago were now just dark plastic eyes staring at each other. Someone not far back was working a maglite, sweeping it over a crumpled sedan that had rear-ended a box truck. If you were out there on that stretch and you remember a guy yelling to stay in your vehicles, that was me, Habit again. Worked a wreck once years ago when a car clipped my trailer in the rain, and I remembered the trooper yelling the same thing. I walked between rigs and cars, flashlight low so I would not blind anybody, telling folks to kill their engines if they somehow still ran and to set brakes, which was mostly just something to say because everything was already still. People wanted answers right away. A woman in a minivan kept asking about her kids' cell phones, why they would not turn on. A guy in a Dodge pickup asked if maybe the power plant blew. Another driver in a blue Peterbilt just stood there with his hands in his pockets, staring at the black horizon where Sweetwater's glow should be. No one had bars, no one had radio. Car stereos were dead. Modern life had its neck cut in one slice. Here is where old habits matter. 10 years on the road, you collect superstitions. One of mine was keeping a little bit of my world not plugged in. In the sleeper, I had my old CB set, not the newer one wired into the dash. It was in a metal toolbox under some clothes with the mic wrapped in a bandana so it would not rattle. I put it there years ago after a buddy told me about Faraday cages and why you do not trust that the grid will last forever. I felt stupid every time I moved that box to get to something else. Tonight, that stupid habit is the only reason I'm talking to you. Back in the cab, I dug the box out, set the CB on the bunk, checked it by flashlight. No burn marks, no smell, old analog unit, knobs and switches, no fancy screen. I pulled the panels on the dash and ran leads straight to the truck's main battery. The truck's computer was fried, I could tell that much, but the battery still held juice. Electronics went stupid, chemistry did not. When I turned the volume knob on that radio and heard static, I felt something in my chest loosen up. It was not hope, just proof that the world had not ended everywhere in every way. There was still a way to push a voice out into the dark. I threw the antenna switch, keyed the mic, and said the first thing that came to mind. Breaker, breaker, this is westbound 73 on Interstate 20 near Sweetwater, Texas, calling any driver with ears on. We got a situation out here. I let go of the button and listened. Just hiss. Turned the squelch down until the noise was a steady, soft roar in the background. Keyed up again. This is Mark out of Odessa. Power is down. Engines are dead. Phones are dead. If you can hear this, check your gear and come back. The first voice that answered did not sound far. Male, older, scratchy tone like too many cigarettes and truck stop coffee.
Mark, this is Dave in the cattle hauler behind you. Thought I recognized your mud flaps. My big rig is dead, but my handheld CB is working. You seeing what I am seeing?
He said a few other things I will not repeat word for word because kids might be listening to this somewhere. Main point was simple. His phone was shot too. His dash radio was shot. His little battery CB, which he kept off and tucked in the door, was fine. We did a quick roll call on Channel 19. Maybe a dozen drivers around our mile marker had something still working. Mostly old CB sets or handhelds that were off when the flash hit. Anything built into the modern truck systems was toast. A couple of real old rigs with mostly mechanical guts claimed they could still turn their engines over by hand cranking or using emergency tricks, but no one tried yet. Everyone wanted to see if the lights would just blink back on. They did not. If you're in Texas, you know the sky. Even with cities glowing, you can see a lot of stars. Tonight, once everyone stopped shining flashlights around, there was no glow from Sweetwater, no smear from Abilene, nothing from the oil patch to the west. Just stars from horizon to horizon, hard and cold. That meant whatever hit us was not just local. Grid did not just trip. Someone had taken a broom to a huge section of the map. About 20 minutes after the flash, we heard the first jet go down. You do not really hear the crash at that distance, just this wrong rumble and a glow on the horizon that has no business being there. Someone on the CB said he saw a plane pass overhead after losing nav lights, engines coughing, then dropping to the south. No flares. No radio from it, at least not on anything we could hear. After that, we all understood this was not a power outage. This was an attack. I am no military man, but I haul enough loads past Dyess Air Force Base in Abilene to know the lay of the land. I passed it 100 times, C-130 transports lined up, B-1 bombers on the tarmac. You hear stories in truck stop diners. Some of them are junk. Some of them are not. One you hear a lot is about how the whole country is vulnerable to a high-altitude nuclear burst, one device over the center of the map frying anything electronic that is not hardened. Tonight it feels like someone tested that theory for real. Maybe not just one device. Feels bigger than that. People at the rest stop started to split into types real fast. You had the panickers, who grabbed bags and started walking east down the interstate shoulder toward where they thought town was. You had the sitters, who stayed in their cars and waited for sirens that were never coming. Then you had the doers, and I decided I was not going to be in the first two groups. Dave from the cattle hauler and I met up by the picnic tables. He is a ranch hand turned driver out of Lubbock, late 50s, heavy shoulders, ball cap, with a seed company logo. His trailer was loaded with empty cages, thank God, so we did not have live animals boiling in there with no fans. We played triage with what we had. First step, water. Rest areas have bathrooms with tanks. Without power, they do not flush right, but the water in the tanks is clean. We filled every bottle, jug, and coffee carafe we could find. I walked through the lot knocking on windows, telling folks to get out and fill whatever they had while it lasted. A few looked at me like I was selling something. A few listened. Second, fuel. With no pumps, stations are dead, but trucks carry their own reserves. I carry spare diesel in a gravity-fed ox tank. I started planning routes in my head that did not rely on stopping at Pilot or Love's. That is when the thought hit me hard. My wife and my son were back in Odessa. If this was national, they were sitting in a dark house near Loop 375 with a dead fridge and no idea if I was alive. My job shifted in my head from delivering auto parts to getting home. I am saying this out loud so you can measure your own thinking. In a situation like this, your mission changes. You are not going to work tomorrow. You are not making your delivery window. Your mission turns into staying alive and getting to your people, or if they are gone, staying alive anyway. Accept that fast. Back in the cab, I rigged the CB permanent, battery on the floor, cables tight. Antenna cable runs straight out the passenger window to the factory whip. No fancy tuning, just raw signal. I checked every breaker and fuse I could reach. Some were burnt, some looked fine. I pulled the main engine control unit connector and reseated it, even though it was probably pointless. When I tried the key again, the starter actually clicked once. That told me not everything in the truck's guts was cooked. I pulled the engine side panel and checked the wiring harness by flashlight. No obvious melting, no blown junctions. This was not heat damage. It was invisible. That is the worst kind. You start doubting your own eyes. I sat there with a wrench in my hand and the smell of cooling metal in my nose and decided I would give that engine one more chance. Key to on, nothing on the dash, turn to start. Starter engaged slow, like it was pulling through mud. Then the engine caught. Not smooth, rough, stumbling, but alive. No alternator output, no gauges, but fuel still flowed and compression still happened. I let it run at a low idle and listened. If you have a modern diesel that just died on you, I'm not saying you can do the same. A lot of control modules are toast right now across this country. Some rigs are just big dead statues. But some of you will have that one lucky mix of old parts, aftermarket work, and plain, stubborn machinery that shrugs off enough of the pulse to turn over. If you do, you have something close to a superpower now. You can move. Dave's cattle hauler was not one of the lucky ones. His dash was frozen, starter did not even try. He banged on the steering wheel, cursed, then laughed once, short and hard, and climbed down. He slapped the side of my trailer when he walked past and told me straight.
You get that thing moving, Mark. You point it at Odessa, and do not stop until you hit your driveway.
Then he went back to help a family dig a spare tire out of a minivan trunk so they could use it for a water bucket. I made my broadcast plan simple. Every time I stopped that engine, there was a chance it would not start again, so I would move in jumps instead of idling forever. Drive a bit, stop where it made sense, shut down, broadcast, listen, plan, move again. No GPS, no trucker app. Just road signs, memory, and paper maps. If you are listening, here is a practical tip. Find paper maps, atlas, county maps, even the junk ones. Old-timers keep in glove compartments. Your phone is not a map anymore. It is a dead screen and a bit of metal that might be useful as a mirror someday. Get real maps and a pen. Mark where you are, mark where you want to go, mark danger spots you hear on CB or from neighbors. About an hour after the flash, with my water jugs full and anything useful from the vending machines handed out, I climbed back in, said a quick prayer, and nudged the clutch. The truck rolled. I eased her off the shoulder back onto the interstate, weaving through the forest of stopped vehicles at walking speed. People stared as I passed like I was doing magic. A few waved. One guy tried to block me, yelling about staying put until the government came. I stuck my head out the window and told him the government's radios were just as dead as his and that I had a kid in Odessa. He moved. Rolling east toward Abilene alone on a highway full of parked cars is one of the strangest experiences of my life. You know those scenes where time freezes except for one person. That is what it felt like, except time was not frozen. It was wounded. I kept the speed down around 30 miles an hour, weaving between rigs and cars that had drifted out of lanes when their power steering died. Every few minutes I would hit the CB and call out mile markers. This is Mark in the white Freightliner heading east on Interstate 20, passing mile marker 265. If you can hear this, and your engine still runs, sound off and pull up behind me. Convoy beats solo. By the time I hit the exit from Merkel, I had two vehicles behind me. One was an older Ford F-150 pickup, mid-90s model, paint peeling, farm plate. The other was a small school bus from some church in Midland, mostly empty seats, one driver and two teenagers inside. Both had engines that coughed but kept going. Both drivers were wide-eyed and scared. We pulled into the shoulder at the top of the exit ramp and had a quick meeting through the windows. The pickup driver was a guy named Levi, rancher from outside Snyder. His truck had stalled but restarted. Old mechanical heart in that thing, blessing in disguise. The bus driver was a woman named Carla, substitute teacher, had been bringing kids back from a youth retreat near Abilene when everything cut. She dropped the rest with parents back in town just before the lights died and was trying to get home to Midland with her nephew and niece. We agreed on a few rules. Stay close, but not bumper to bumper. Lights are dead, so we use hand signals when stopped. No one leaves a vehicle without telling the others. If anyone sees roadblocks ahead that are not law, we regroup and decide together. Simple stuff, but saying it out loud made people breathe a little easier. Back on the interstate heading west now, because I decided Dallas could burn for all I cared, my family was in the other direction. We were 3 moving islands in a sea of stranded steel. A couple of times people tried to wave us down, asking for rides. That is the part I hate the most when I replay it. The faces in the flashlight beams, hands out, begging. We took one extra passenger. A kid, maybe 19, whose little Honda Civic had coasted into the ditch and hung up. He climbed into the bus with Carla. After that, we stopped saying yes. You cannot fill a bus with every sad story you pass. That is where the without mercy part of surviving starts to show up, and it does not feel brave. It feels dirty and necessary at the same time. As we rolled, I kept talking on this mic, partly for you, partly for the folks behind me. I called out every landmark. Passing the big wind farm near Sweetwater. All the red lights on the towers are dark. Blades are still. Sky is clear. No glow from Abilene ahead. If anyone near Dystocast Air Force Base can hear this, give a shout. Let us know if the base is intact. Static answered. Then a faint voice, clipped words, heavy breathing.
This is Sergeant Miller, Security Forces Dystocast. Short transmission. Base power out. Backup generators failed. We are on manual. Flight line is a parking lot. Communication up chain is gone. We believe multiple pulses nationwide. Advise civilians to shelter in place and conserve everything.
Then he cut abruptly, like someone yanked the plug. Maybe his handheld battery died. Maybe someone told him to shut up. Either way, that was the only military voice I heard all night. Hearing that made something real settle in my stomach. This was not just Texas. This was bigger. If you are in Houston, San Antonio, Amarillo, maybe you are hearing the same dead air. Maybe you are the one talking into a jury-rigged radio right now, telling your own stretch of truth. We turned off Interstate 20 onto State Highway 349 south toward Midland when the signs came up. Those big green ones that are suddenly just lumps of reflective metal. No overhead lights, no gas stations humming. The little towns along the way, Colorado City, Big Spring, all looked wrong. No neon, no porch lights, no nothing. Every now and then a building glowed faintly from candles or lanterns, just enough to show there were still people who had not given up. In Big Spring, we made our first real fuel stop, not at a station, at a parked tanker. You spend enough years trucking, you learn a bit about siphoning. The tanker was marked for diesel, sitting dead at the side of a service road. Driver nowhere in sight. We pulled off, killed engines, let the night settle, then worked fast. Hose, fuel-rated hand pump I keep in a toolbox. A couple of clean jerry cans from Carla's bus emergency kit. I am not proud of taking fuel that was not mine, but the guy who signed the bill of lading for that load was not coming to get it anytime soon, and my family was still 100 miles away. In a world where the grid may not stand back up for months or years, law shifts under your feet. You still keep a line. You do not hurt people for fun. You do not steal from a hungry kid, but you do what you have to. While we filled cans, I kept the CB on low, mic close. Every now and then I would call out, "This is Mark near Big Spring, Texas. We have 3 vehicles moving west toward Midland and Odessa. If you are on this route and your ride still runs, keep your radio on 19. If you are stuck in town, get water stored and stay off the streets once people realize the power is not coming back on." I started giving practical instructions I have picked up over the years from storms and accidents. Fill bathtubs. Fill every bucket. Eat your fridge and freezer food first. Put canned goods aside. Treat every stranger with a little suspicion and every family member with a lot of patience. Around what I guessed was 3 in the morning, judging by the stars in my gut, we crested a rise and saw Midland and Odessa ahead. Or rather, we saw where they should have been. Normally, the Permian Basin glows. Wells, flares, streetlights, the long smear of Loop 250, all of it shows up from miles away. Now it was just a darker patch of horizon. My chest tightened. That highway had taken me out and back for years, and I had always counted on that glow as a sign home was still there. Tonight, home did not look back. We pulled over before dropping into town, just past the big sign that says, "Welcome to Odessa." Parked on the shoulder, engines idling low, I grabbed the mic and talked straight into the dark. "Odessa, this is Mark Ellison, long haul out of the west side, calling anyone with a CB and a running engine. We are on Interstate 20 westbound shoulder near the Odessa sign. If you can hear this and you are in town, key up twice so I know someone is alive." The first answer was not from a truck. Thin voice, a little shaky, young.
"This is Emily on my grandpa's CB, Mr. Mark. We are on the south side near the high school. Power is out. Mom says the TV is broken. Grandpa says it is not. He is listening on the police scanner. Police are saying stay inside because there are wrecks on West County Road and Loop. We have candles. We filled the bathtub."
Her voice went away for a second, and I could hear an older man in the background correcting something softly. Then she came back.
"Grandpa says thank you for telling people about the water. He says the city does not know when the pumps will work again."
I swallowed because that hit hard. Some kid in a dark living room clinging to a stranger's voice on a box of wires. That is you, maybe. That is your neighbors. That is why I keep talking even when my throat hurts and this battery drops another notch. "Emily, tell your grandpa he is a smart man. You listen to him. Stay off the streets unless the house is on fire. If anyone comes to the door after midnight and is not someone you know very well, you do not open it. You got that?
Yes, sir.
Good. I'm going to keep talking while I try to get to my place. If you hear engines in your neighborhood, do not run toward them. Watch from a window first. We rolled into Odessa slow. I took the exit for West Loop 338 and headed toward my subdivision. Without streetlights, you learn your hometown all over again. You count turns. You look for shapes instead of signs. The Whataburger on the corner was just a dark brick lump. No orange glow, no kids with window markers in the lot. Every intersection had at least one wreck. Nothing huge, just fender crumples where confused drivers rolled through dead traffic lights at the same time. No cops directing traffic, no tow trucks, just people with flashlights shouting at each other, pointing, sometimes shoving. I cut through side streets to avoid the worst of it, the bus and the pickup following. The CB was quiet except for my own breathing and the occasional burst of somebody far off yelling something useless. Fear does that. It fills the air with noise that does not help anyone. I tried to be the opposite. Short, clear, useful when I hit the mic. This is Mark in Odessa. If you can hear this and you have a generator, do not run it in the open where everyone can see the light and hear the motor. You will draw people who want what you have. Run it in short bursts and be ready to shut it down fast. My street came into view as a darker stripe against the slightly lighter neighborhood. I pulled the rig to a stop at the corner because there was no way I was threading 40 feet of trailer between parked cars in the dark without sideswiping someone's ride. Left it there with the hazards dead and the engine chugging. Told Carla and Levi on handheld to keep watch, then grabbed my flashlight and jogged down the block. That jog felt longer than any mile I have ever driven. No porch lights. One dog barking in the distance. Somewhere a baby crying. The air had that stillness you get in the moments before a storm hits, except the storm had already arrived. You just could not see the clouds. My house is a one-story brick with a little pecan tree in the front yard. The tree was a dark, thicker shape against the dark. The front window was black. For 1 second, my legs went weak. Then I saw a flicker through the glass. Just a tiny candle point. I nearly laughed out loud. I knocked our pattern on the door. 2 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick. We made it up when my boy was little, so he knew it was me at the door, not a stranger. Tonight that habit might have saved us 1 more layer. The deadbolt slid. Door opened a crack. My wife's face appeared, lit by candle flame behind her. Her other hand held my old baseball bat. I loved her more in that second than in any quiet anniversary dinner we ever had.
Mark?
Yeah, baby, it is me. Inside the house, the air was warm and a little stale. They had already covered the fridge with blankets to keep the cold in and dragged the living room mattress away from the windows. My son, 12 years old, sat cross-legged on the floor with a flashlight and a paperback book, trying to pretend this was some camping trip. When he saw me, he dropped the book and hit me in the ribs with a hug. I did not care. I hugged him back until he squirmed. We did a quick situation brief right there in the living room. My wife, Lisa, RN at Medical Center Hospital, had been home on her day off when the power died. Her phone went same as mine. Landline dead. She had checked the radio. Nothing. Neighbors had come by, talked in the yard, traded rumors. She had already filled the tub, the sinks, every pot. She had dug out the hurricane kit her sister sent from Houston years ago and set out candles and a crank radio that did nothing but whine. That is when I told her about the pulse, about the dead interstate, about the planes. I kept it simple and honest. No sugar, no doom talk. Just facts and what I plan next. Truck still runs for now. I have 2 other vehicles with me, a pickup and a small bus, folks headed to Midland and maybe beyond. I have the CB working. I'm going to use it to talk to anyone who can hear and try to help this town not tear itself apart in the first 2 days. She looked at me for a long second, processing.
And us?
You and Josh stay here for now. Doors locked. Lights low. We will bring water and any food I can scrounge that will not get us shot. We will keep talking on the CB. We will listen. We do not go to any so-called relief center until we know who is running it and how. If you are in a similar living room somewhere, you are having that same conversation. Maybe it is with your spouse, maybe with your parents, maybe you are alone and talking to the kitchen wall. The temptation is strong to run toward any authority voice that says, "Shelter here." Some of those will be good, honest attempts. Some will be chaos in a school gym. Some will be traps for desperate people. Use your head. Ask questions. Who is running it? How long can they feed people? How are they handling security? If the answers are vague, you stay home. I grab my old 12 gauge from the closet. Pump action, plain, nothing fancy. Kept the shells in a cigar box on the top shelf. I am not going to give you brand names or a lecture. Just this: if you have a firearm, know how to use it safely before you need it. Tonight is not the night to learn which endpoints where. Also understand that pulling a gun solves exactly one problem and creates 5 more. Use it sparingly and only when there is no other choice. I kissed my wife, kissed my kid, told them to keep the bat handy and the rear door blocked, then stepped back out into the dark. Back in the truck, I switched the engine off to save whatever life was left in the electronics that still worked, and ran the CB straight off the battery again. I set the mic in front of me, took a breath, and started doing what I am doing now, talking. Not panicking, not preaching, just laying out what I see and what I know, like I'm sitting with a friend at 3 a.m. on a long haul. You are that friend right now, whether you wanted the job or not. So here is where things stand in my little slice of Texas. Power is out across Odessa and Midland. No glow from the refineries in the basin. No commercial radio. One brief military transmission from Dystocast saying they got hit too. A handful of trucks and older vehicles still run. Most modern cars are dead on the road. Planes are falling, or have fallen. People are confused and scared, and in the next 24 hours that fear is going to turn into something sharper. You need to do a few things before the sun comes up. Fill every container with water. Bathtub, sink, bucket, cooler, old soda bottles. When the water tower is empty and the pumps do not start, you will be drinking what you saved. Sort your food. Anything in the fridge that you want to eat, plan to eat it soon. Cook it if you can. Do not open the freezer unless you have a plan. Once that cold starts leaking out, it is ticking down. Canned and dry food goes to the back of the cupboard. That is for later. Find light sources that do not rely on the grid. Candles, battery lanterns, oil lamps, if you have them, and know how not to burn your house down. No open flame near curtains or clutter. Keep one fire extinguisher handy if you have one. Lock your doors. That seems obvious, but you would be surprised. Once folks realize this is not a 1-hour blackout, some will go looking for easy scores. Do not be an easy score. Pick one room to use as your main living space. Preferably not one with big windows. Move mattresses in there. Make it your bunker. If you have neighbors you trust, talk to them. Share information. Share tasks. A cul-de-sac with 10 households working together is stronger than 10 little islands. But do not announce to everyone on the block that you have a generator and a month of food. Keep some things quiet. On the roads, things are going to go bad. Right now, people are still in the shock phase. Tomorrow, they will try to leave town, realize their cars do not work, and see the highways jammed with dead vehicles. That is when you will start seeing armed folks set up roadside camps, roadblocks, and worse. If you do not absolutely have to be on the interstate, stay off it. Use side streets, alleys, trails. Travel in daylight when you can see. Night is for hiding, not roaming. I am saying this from the middle of the day one now, not from guessing. When I first talked about that, it was still night and everybody was gripping their flashlights like those were magic wands. Sun came up and turned all the fears into shapes. People started moving. That is when the real trouble started. Dawn in Odessa without power is strange. You wake up because of light coming around the curtains, not because of a phone alarm or a diesel idle. No AC hum, no fridge click, no neighbor's truck starting up for an early shift. Just birds and distant yelling. I had crashed for maybe 2 hours on the mattress in the living room with my boots still on, CB mic on the coffee table next to my hand. When I woke, my throat was dry and the air felt used up. First thing I did was hit the mic and talk to see if anyone was still there. This is Mark in Odessa, checking in. Morning of day 1, far as I can tell. If you heard me in the night and you are still with us, key up or say your street so I know who is out there. Static for a moment, then a few voices in order.
This is Emily again, South Side. We are still here.
A guy from a trailer park off West University. An older woman from near the hospital, voice shaky but steady. One other trucker who made it to a motel lot and decided to sleep in his cab anyway. People were still listening. That mattered. My wife handed me a mug of lukewarm coffee she had brewed on a little single-burner camping stove we keep for hurricanes. The smell cut through the stale air and woke up parts of my brain that had been running on fumes. Our boy sat there listening to the CB, eyes big, not touching the cereal in his bowl.
We're going to school?
He asked. School is closed, kiddo, I said, indefinitely. He nodded once, trying to act older than he is. To you listening right now, that is one of the little things that will keep hitting. All the routines you assumed would start again tomorrow are not coming back for a while. No school, no clock in, no game practice. Every day is going to be the same 2 questions. What do we eat? How do we stay safe? Around mid-morning, I stepped outside to see what the street looked like. The neighborhood was awake. People stood in driveways, talking, gesturing. A couple of trucks with the older engines were testing their luck, revving gently, turning around in the cul-de-sac. The family across from us, the Gonzalez crew, had a folding table out with jugs and pots. They were filling containers from their bathtub, telling neighbors to bring their own. That is the good side of humanity right there. It is real. Do not forget it when I tell you the bad parts. I carried the CB mic outside with a long lead, set it on the hood of my truck so I could keep talking and watching at the same time. I started using it not just as a broadcast, but as a way to knit a rough map of what was happening in town. Anyone near the HEB on East University, report what you see. Same for the Walmart on JB Parkway. I want to know if folks are lining up peaceful or if it is a mess. HEB first. A 30-something guy named Chris checked in from his front porch 2 blocks away.
Big crowd already, Mark. Parking lot is full even though half the cars are dead. People walked, doors are closed. Manager is outside on a crate talking to people. I can hear words like perishable first and 1 cart per family. No gunshots yet, just arguing.
That sounded surprisingly organized for the first few hours of the end of normal. HEB has a reputation down here. Good logistics, people who think ahead. Then came Walmart. Voice on the CB called herself Denise, said she lived in the apartments behind the big store on JB Parkway. She had the window open and the view we needed.
Mark, it was quiet at first. Now there are folks banging on the doors. Some employees are inside. I can see vests moving around, but they are not opening. Couple of people brought their own crowbars. I heard glass crack a little ago. No police yet. Sirens are dead, I guess. I do not see any patrol cars.
Her voice shook a bit on those last words. She knew what that meant. No cops, no official line between hungry and stupid. If you are in a town this size, 1 big box store is going to hold what? A week of food for the area if folks shop normal. In a panic, it is less than a day. Without registers and rules, it is hours. I told Denise straight, pull your curtains, get away from the windows, take your important stuff to an inside room. If that crowd pushes in there, you do not want to see it. You also do not want them to see you. She whispered a thank you and clicked off. I am telling you that part because this is how it goes. First hours, folks line up and shout. When they realize no trucks are coming to restock and no cops are coming to break up the crowd, something snaps. You get 2 kinds of people again. The ones who still try to form a line and the ones who figure this is their shot to grab a cart and run. The second group grows as the day goes on. Levi, the rancher with the old Ford pickup, rolled into our street mid-morning. He had been sleeping in the truck in front of my house, but he had gone to check his own place on the edge of the town first light. He climbed out now, stretched, rubbed his neck. Face looked older than it had the night before.
House is fine,
he said.
My wife and boy are there. Neighbour is with them. We got a well. hand pump still works, so water is good if no one does anything stupid. I told them to stay put and watch the fence line.
I nodded. Glad for you. I am going to have to make a run later. Hospitals, maybe water plant. See how bad it is. You in? He looked at my rig, then at his old pickup.
One of us should stay put and guard the families. One goes. If we both go and do not come back, we are jerks, not heroes.
He was right. Realistic decisions do not feel cinematic. They feel like disappointment and common sense mixed together. We agreed. I would go with the truck and Carla's small bus for a sweep around key spots, using daylight while things were still half calm. Levi would stay in the neighborhood, help with water and watch duty, and keep the CB on to relay anything we called in. My wife did not love the idea of me leaving again, but she knew I was not built to sit on a couch in a blackout while the town spun up into chaos. She pulled me in close by the doorway.
Be back before dark. I do not care what you see or who you help. Before dark, Mark.
Yes, ma'am, I said. I want you to hear that too. Daylight is your working window now. Give yourself a hard curfew. Pick a time before sunset and be back behind a locked door by then unless there is no other choice. Night belongs to whoever is desperate enough to move in it. Do not volunteer for that club. We rolled out in a 3-vehicle line again. My rig in front, Carla's small bus in the middle, Levi's truck staying behind in the neighborhood. Instead of hitting the interstate, we took surface streets. First stop, the city water treatment plant out near the river. My thinking was simple. If that place went bad, the whole town's timeline shrank. Water is not a tomorrow problem. It is a today and tomorrow and every day, forever problem. Road conditions were rough, but not yet deadly. At every big intersection with dead traffic lights, there were cars angled wrong. Minor crashes. People had dragged some vehicles out of the way with old trucks and muscle. Others just sat in the lane with doors open where the owner had walked away. We threaded through as slow as we had on the interstate. Horns useless. Windows down so we could shout if needed. More than once, someone flagged us, asked for a lift, called out questions. We stuck to our rule, no more passengers. I answered questions short through the window. Yes, it is nationwide far as we know. No, your phone is not going to fix itself. Yes, fill your bathtub, do it now. Then we rolled on. At the water plant, the front gate was closed, but not locked. The keypad was dead naturally. A couple of employees sat on the inside side in lawn chairs wearing reflective vests, talking low. A city pickup with the logo on the door sat nearby. Hood up, useless. I parked the rig outside the fence and walked up, hands visible, CB mic clipped to my belt, 12 gauge left in the cab. Last thing I wanted was to look like trouble. Morning, I said. Name is Mark, long-haul driver. I live in town. I am talking to folks on CB. People want to know if the taps are going to keep working. One of the workers stood up. Middle-aged woman, ball cap with the city emblem, sunburned neck. She had the tired look of someone who did night shift maintenance a lot. Her name tag said R. Salazar.
We got the plant running on residual pressure,
She said.
The pumps tripped when the power died, but we can run a couple of them manually off the diesel generator. Problem is, the generator's starter is fried. Whole panel lit up and quit when the flash hit. We are trying to find a backup we can pull start.
Diesel in the tank? I asked. She nodded.
Half full. If we can get that thing spinning, we can keep water flowing to most of town at low pressure. At least until the fuel runs out.
How long is that? I said, if you are careful.
Maybe a week, more if we throttle it.
There it was, timer ticking in the background of everything. We talked about options. I asked if any of the smaller pumps had manual options. She said one did. An older auxiliary pump the city never replaced because it still worked. Problem there was manpower. You had to physically crank the thing in shifts. You give me a list of people you trust, I said. I will put the word out on the CB. We will get volunteers. We can keep that small pump turning in shifts while you figure out the generator. She studied me, measuring how much trouble I might bring.
You bring me people who can follow instructions and not steal copper from the scrap bin, I will take them,
she said.
Tell them to bring gloves and water for themselves. I cannot hand out bottles right now.
Back in the cab, I hit the mic hard. This is Mark at the Odessa water treatment plant. We got one diesel generator crippled and one older pump that can be hand-cranked to keep water flowing. If you are healthy and can spare a few hours, we need volunteers here in shifts. No one is paying you. This is for your own faucets. Bring gloves and bring your own water. Do not show up empty-handed expecting a picnic. I repeated the directions slowly. Road names, landmarks. If you live in town and you heard that earlier today and you came, you have my gratitude. You helped keep toilets flushing and taps dripping a little longer for a lot of people. From the plant, we moved toward the hospital. Medical Center Hospital sits on the west side of town, a block of concrete and glass that usually hums 24 hours a day. Today there were no lit windows, no parking garage lights, no ambulance sirens. There were still people outside, though, a crowd in the drop-off loop. Some nurses in scrubs, some family members, some patients in wheelchairs under the awning. We did not pull into the loop. That mess needed different help. I parked across the street in a strip mall lot and watched for a minute. CB live. I could see Lisa's colleagues out there, even from a distance. Nurses with clipboards trying to organize families, handing out blankets. No power means ventilators are down unless they are on battery backup. Those batteries do not last forever. It means operating rooms are dark, labs are dead. Whoever was in surgery when the pulse hit is either stable enough to move or already gone. That is the blunt truth. I wanted to cross that street and help, but I know my lanes. I am not a medic. I am a trucker with a radio. We checked in on the CB instead. Any medical staff from Medical Center on Channel 19, this is Mark across the street. Do you want me to put out any message for the general public so you do not have to keep shouting it at strangers? A voice came back. It was Lisa's friend Kara, an ER nurse I knew from cookouts. She sounded worn out already.
Mark, this is Kara. Tell people they cannot bring stable relatives here for just in case. We need beds for folks who are bleeding or cannot breathe. Tell them to stay home unless it is life or death. Also, tell them we are out of some medications already, and we cannot refrigerate the rest for long. If they have insulin at home, they need to think about how to keep it cool.
I repeated her message slowly into the mic a couple of times, making it as plain as possible. If your relative can talk and walk and is not bleeding, do not haul them to the hospital thinking someone will run tests. The hospital is a last line, not a first stop. Use your judgment. If you bring a sprained ankle, you are taking a nurse away from someone's heart attack. This is the kind of ugly math everyone is doing now. Triage is not just a hospital word anymore. You will be using it in your own house. What can wait? What cannot? Who gets the last dose? The last clean bandage? The last glass of cold water? Plan for it while you still have a choice. Soon after we left the hospital area, the first signs of organized bad actors showed up. Not just scared people, folks who saw the gap in law and decided to fill it for their own benefit. We hit the ring road around the city and saw a cluster of vehicles blocking a major intersection. 3 older trucks, hoods up, to look casual, all angled so you could not easily drive through without weaving. A couple of men with rifles slung, standing too loose, watching passing traffic that barely moved. One had a bandana over his face. He was using his body to wave people off one side road and onto another. If you see something like that, hear this clearly. That is not a community checkpoint. That is a funnel. They steer you away from roads they do not control and into a spot where they can surround you out of sight. Do not get curious. Do not roll up close to ask what is going on. You already know what is going on. We saw that from half a block away and stopped. I grabbed the binoculars I keep in the cab for watching weather and traffic. Confirmed what my gut was saying. No badges, no uniforms. Bad rifle discipline. One of them kept pointing his barrel at his buddy's foot without noticing. That tells you everything you need to know. We backed out slow. One vehicle at a time, turned around in a church parking lot and used smaller streets, letting the blockers have their little kingdom over that intersection. I put it on the CB right away. This is Mark near 52nd and Dixie. There are armed civilians blocking the intersection, steering cars onto a side road. They do not look official. Avoid that area. Take alternate routes. Do not drive up to them for a chat. A few minutes later, another voice came on, shaking, talking fast. Young man. Said he had tried to go through that same intersection in a compact truck.
They waved me onto a side street. I thought it was some kind of traffic control. Soon as I turned, 2 guys stepped out between houses with guns up, told me to get out and leave the keys. I told them the truck barely ran. They did not care. One of them fired a warning shot in the air. I got out and walked. They took the truck.
I told him he did the right thing walking away. A vehicle is not worth your life. You might not believe that until you are staring at a barrel, but I am planting it in your head now, so maybe it helps later. We finished our sweep by cutting past the Walmart area. From a distance, you could see broken glass glittering in the parking lot and a stream of people hauling armloads of whatever they could carry. No orderly carts. No employees at the door. Just an open wound of a building with goods spilling out. None of those people looked happier after filling their arms. They looked scared and wired. That is a bad combination. We did not get close. Nothing I could say on a CB would calm that crowd. That is a problem for hard walls and time, not speeches. Back in the neighborhood, the tone had shifted. People were starting to self-organize in little clusters. Gonzalez family had set up not just water, but a sign-up sheet for street duties. One man from 3 houses down, former Marine by the look of his haircut and the way he stood, was talking about watch rotations. I parked the rig where I had the night before, nose facing out, ready to move if we had to. Then I joined the circle and listened. You listening in your own cul-de-sac, pay attention. This is a model that works, with tweaks for your place. We split the day into chunks, morning, afternoon, early night. In each chunk, 2 adults would be on watch at the end of the street, unarmed or armed, depending on comfort and laws. They would not play cop. They would just observe and warn. If a group of strangers started walking in with that wrong kind of confidence, the watchers would call everyone inside and we would quietly arm ourselves and be ready. We agreed on signals. 1 whistle blast meant come to your front door, 2 meant get inside and lock up, 3 meant real trouble and move to rear rooms. Not perfect, but better than 10 houses reacting in 10 different ways. We also did a fast inventory talk. Not full details, just broad strokes. Who had medical training? Who had tools? Who had extra food? Who had well water versus city? We did not write anything down on paper where a stranger could grab it. We just made sure at least a couple of us knew who to call for what. That is how you turn a line of separate houses into something like a block. Not by pretending everything is fine, but by looking at each other and saying, all right, this is what we have. In between all this, I kept going back to the truck and talking on the CB. I reported what we saw. I relayed what Salazar at the water plant needed. I passed along Kara's message from the hospital. I also started to hear from farther away. A driver out near Monahan's with an old Kenworth said Pecos was dark and people were already camping on the shoulders of Interstate 20. A ham operator in Andrews with a battery rig and a homemade antenna managed to bounce a signal to us through the CB crowd. He said he had made contact with someone in New Mexico who reported Albuquerque and Santa Fe dark as well.
This is not just Texas,
he said, and
someone hit the whole western grid at least. Maybe more. East Coast is quiet too far as we can tell. No big broadcaster signals on shortwave. I am hearing only local and homemade.
You do not have to be a general to understand what that means. Coordinated strike, high altitude, aimed at knocking the United States down off its technological feet in one go. Not to make pretty lights, but to cripple command, control, communications, and logistics. That means the food on your shelf, the diesel in your tank, the pills in your medicine cabinet are now part of a fixed stockpile in a game with no resupply button. Accepting that early lets you plan like an adult instead of waiting for the cavalry. By late afternoon of day 1, you could feel a different kind of heat on the streets. Not just the usual West Texas sun, though that was doing its thing. People were tired. The first rush of adrenaline had burned off. No one had slept enough. Kids were crying louder. Someone a block over started a shouting match about a borrowed generator that had never actually been returned before the pulse. Old grudges found new teeth. That is another thing you need to expect. Whatever friction your neighborhood had before this, any feud, any stupid disagreement about property lines or dogs or loud music will flare. Sometimes it helps to drag those into the open and kill them with plain talk. Sometimes it is safer to keep your distance from the hotheads. Around that time, we got our first real catastrophe inside the city. Up to that point, we had seen only slow burn stuff, looting, roadblocks, medical stress. Then the refinery fire started. You know the big tank farm east of town, where the storage tanks stand in rows? One of those tanks must have taken a hit indirectly. Maybe a safety system failed when the power died. Maybe some equipment overheated. Maybe someone did something dumb. Either way, a column of black smoke started rising from that direction, straight up into the pale sky. From our street, we could see it over the rooftops, thick and ugly. A few seconds later, the ham operator from Andrews came on again, voice clipped.
Explosive event at tank farm, east of Odessa. Fire is visible from miles out. No audible sirens from fire department. If you are downwind, stay indoors and seal your windows as best you can. The air out there is not your friend right now.
I added what I knew from hauling loads past refineries. Those tanks hold crude and refined products. When they burn without proper firefighting foam and coordination, they can burn for days. If you are within a couple of miles and you got the means to leave safely, this might be a reason to do it. But do not run toward the highways without a plan. And for the love of your lungs, wet towels and put them around window edges. I could hear kids in the background of some calls start to cry harder when parents repeated the word fire. That sound gets into your bones. Night of day one came faster than anyone wanted. We had kept busy, and that made the daylight feel shorter. Right on cue, my wife reminded me of the promise.
Inside before dark,
She said, hand on my arm.
that goes for the truck too.
We had to decide if I was going to park the rig somewhere more hidden than the corner of the street. A running truck is a magnet. It screams resource. At the same time, that engine and that CB were our connection to information, and if we had to leave our best ride, we compromised. I backed the rig into our short driveway at a steep angle, nose pointed at the street, trailer blocking some of the view from the main road. We stacked trash cans and an old plywood sheet in front of the cab to break its silhouette. Not perfect, but better than a big shiny bullseye. Inside the house, we shifted into night mode. Candles in only 2 rooms, both away from front windows, doors closed to keep the light from leaking. 1 candle on the coffee table by the CB, 1 in the kitchen used briefly, then snuffed. We propped the front door with a heavy chair and a bar I had cut years ago and never expected to use outside of the tornado season. I set the CB volume low, just enough to hear voices without waking the whole block. For the next few hours, the talk changed. Less reports of crowds, more of small noises in the dark. A man from across town said he heard gunshots near an apartment complex. Short bursts, then silence. A woman whispered that someone had tried her front door handle 3 times in an hour, gently, then harder, then gave up. A voice I had not heard before confessed that he was sitting in his living room with a rifle across his lap, shaking, waiting for a sound that would justify using it. I told him to breathe. I told him that firing at shadows was a good way to put a hole in a neighbor. I told him to talk quietly with whoever was in the house with him, so his brain had something to do besides spin worst-case scenarios. It was not therapy. It was just human contact through a coil of wire and a plastic mic. Sometimes that is enough to stop bad choices. Around what felt like midnight, though none of us had clocks, there was a new kind of voice on the CB. Authoritative, practiced, used to giving orders.
This is Sheriff's Office Command for Ector County, broadcasting on emergency band. All civilians are ordered to remain in their homes. Curfew is in effect until 6 in the morning. Any persons found on public streets may be detained. For your safety, do not congregate at stores, gas stations, or public buildings. Further instructions will follow.
It sounded official. It might have been legitimate. It also could have been anyone with a base station and a badge they bought at a surplus store. In the dark, authority is just a voice. I did not repeat that message without commentary. You just heard someone claiming to be Sheriff's Office Command, I said. Could be real, could not. Either way, the advice is not wrong. Being out in the dark is stupid unless you are putting out a fire or delivering a baby. Just remember this, until we hear that voice again and can tie it to a real person. Follow orders that make sense, not orders just because they are loud. You are allowed to think. That is another skill you need now, separating tone from content. There will be smooth voices saying dumb things. There will be scared voices saying smart things. Listen for the useful part, not the swagger. Sometime before dawn of day 2, I dozed off sitting upright in the armchair next to the CB, head tilted, mic in my hand. I woke to static and the rough feeling of a dry mouth. My wife was asleep on the mattress with our boy between us, both breathing slow. I watched them for a long minute, then eased up, careful not to wake them. Outside it was still dark, but the air had cooled a bit. The refinery fire glow on the horizon had turned lower and constant. Not a fresh eruption, just a steady, dirty cloud. No gunshots close by. A dog barked twice and stopped. I leaned on the mic and did another roll call. This is Mark. Day 2 is coming. Sound off if you are still here and tell me one thing that went right in your house tonight. Not just bad. Give me one good thing so we remember it is not all loss. Responses came in slow, but they came. Emily said her grandpa told stories by candlelight and she fell asleep halfway through one and did not have nightmares. The trailer park guy said some teenagers had tried to mess with cars and 3 grandmothers chased them off with brooms and words that would make sailors nervous. Denise near Walmart said one of the store employees had managed to lock a whole section of the store and move baby formula into it before the crowd flooded in. And now those cans were safe in a storage room, waiting to be handed out with some kind of system. Small good things in a big bad situation. That is how you stay human. Day 2 brought something that we had been waiting for without wanting to admit it. The first real push to leave town. Not just random people walking, but groups loading up anything that could move. Older trucks, motorcycles with carburetors instead of fancy injection. Even a couple of farm tractors rolling along surface streets, loaded with kids and coolers. Word spread through the CB and through neighbor talk that someone had heard there were National Guard units setting up a safe processing area near San Angelo, farther east where generators still worked. No proof, just rumor, repeated enough that folks started packing. Lisa looked at me in the kitchen, both of us sipping coffee heated over the little stove, faces tired.
We going to become one of those families heading towards some mythical safe zone?
She asked. I shook my head. Not yet. We have water for now. We have some food. We know this town. We do not know what waits on the roads. Besides, if the guard is out there, they are going to be swamped. Better to sit tight a few days, see what shakes out, than to roll our kid into a mess we cannot control. She nodded, not exactly happy but understanding. On the CB, I framed it simply. If you are thinking about leaving, do not go just because your neighbor is scared. Go because you have a specific place to go. Enough fuel to get there without trusting gas stations, and enough wheels that still turn. A vague rumor about a safe zone is not a plan. It is a wish. That did not stop caravans from forming, but maybe it trimmed a few. By mid-morning, we got our first concrete word from outside the region that was more than just hearsay. The ham operator in Andrews managed to act as a relay for a guy near Wichita Falls, another trucker who had jury-rigged his CB to act weirdly long range through some antenna trick. The man's voice was faint, but clear enough.
This is Jake out of Wichita Falls. We got hit up here, same as you. Shepherd Air Force Base is dead in the water. Planes grounded, systems toast. City water still flowing but weak. There was a fire at one of the food distribution warehouses on the north side. Folks cleared it out before it burned. National Guard Armory looks active, but their trucks are not rolling far. They got some old deuce and a halves going, but that is about it.
Same pattern. Dead electronics, stressed infrastructure, people trying to hold lines with worn tools. No sign of big federal cavalry sweeping in with shiny new gear. Whatever command still existed was operating in pockets, not as one big hand. Later that day, we had our first casualty tied directly to the roadblocks, not just to bad luck. A man came on Channel 19 from a neighborhood near where we had seen the armed intersection crew. His voice was thick, hard to understand at first. Then it cleared.
This is Tony. They shot my brother.
Silence, then more.
He tried to run their checkpoint, told them he was just going around. They fired into his truck, hit him in the chest. I dragged him out. He died in the grass. They are still there, laughing. I can see them from my porch.
You could feel the tension through the air. A few hot-headed voices started talking about going over there with rifles, cleaning the place out. Vigilante talk, revenge talk. I cut in firm. Everyone take a breath. I get that you are angry. I am angry. But if you form a mob and charge those roadblock guys, all that happens is more bleeding on the asphalt. We do not have ambulances. We do not have trauma surgeons waiting in an OR. If you want those men gone, there are smarter ways than frontal rage. Also remember, we do not know how many they have. Could be 3 at the corner and 10 in the houses behind them. Tony came back, breathing hard.
What do I do then, Mark? Just sit here with my dead brother and watch them steal trucks?
That is the kind of question I hate. There is no good answer. There is only less bad. Short term, I said. You make sure your house is secure. Get your people away from windows that face that intersection. Then you document. Write down what happened. Names if you know them. House descriptions. If lawful authority ever stands back up, that will matter. In the meantime, spread the word quietly. Let people know that area is lethal so they do not drive into it thinking it is a traffic stop. It was not satisfying. It was not Hollywood. It was realistic. Sometimes that is what keeps the body count from climbing higher. While we were talking about that, a different crisis brewed in our own neighborhood. A rumor went around that one house on the far corner had a working generator and plenty of gas. Someone had heard the sound briefly the night before and seen a faint light under the curtains. No big deal, right? Someone prepared and lucky. But to a block full of people staring at spoiled food and sweating kids, that sound turns into something else. A target. A resentment. Why them and not us? We decided to get ahead of it. Before nightfall, me, Levi, and the former Marine, whose name turned out to be Doug, walked over and knocked. The man who answered was in his 50s. Glasses, accountant look, still in his business casual from the day before the world stopped. His name was Howard. He looked nervous when he saw 3 men at his door, one of them obviously military at some point.
You going to rob me?
He said. It came out half joke, half real question. No, sir, I said. We are your neighbors. We are here to talk about that generator before the whole street does it stupid. We laid it out. We knew he had one. We did not want him to turn it off forever. But if he ran it all night, word would spread, and sooner or later someone from outside the block would show up with demands we could not handle. Howard listened, rubbing his forehead.
I bought that thing 3 years ago after the freeze,
he said.
I told my wife we would be glad we had it someday. She is in there right now, cooling off the kids and thawing some meat so it does not rot. You want me to shut it down and sweat with you?
Not exactly,
Doug said.
We want you to run it smart. Maybe 2 hours in the early evening, so your kids and your freezer get a break, and 2 hours just before dawn. Keep the rest of the time quiet, and if we have anyone on this street with a medical thing that absolutely needs refrigeration, we figure out a way to share a little space in that freezer. That way, no one on this block starts getting ideas about taking it from you by force.
Howard looked past us at the other houses. He was doing the mental math.
You think it will really get that bad?
He said. Yeah, I answered. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. People from outside this nice little loop are already stealing trucks at gunpoint. You do not want to advertise that you are the only man in 10 miles who can run an air conditioner. He let out a breath, sagged a little.
All right, 2 hours in the evening, 2 before dawn. You bring me whoever has the insulin or whatever, we will make space. You 3 help me secure the shed so no one can wheel the generator out without losing some teeth.
Done, I said. This is the sort of deal you are going to make a lot if you are lucky enough to have something others do not. You do not scream it from the rooftops, but you also do not hide it from the folks who stand between you and the wider chaos. Sharing a piece buys a lot of goodwill, which may keep someone from pointing you out to the wrong crowd later. We spent the next hour reinforcing his backyard fence with some scrap wood and a length of chain, making the generator shed harder to get into. It would not stop a determined thief with tools, but it would slow them and make noise. Sometimes that is enough. Day 2 ended with less fire but more tension. The water plant volunteers had shown up, tired, sweaty, hands blistered from cranking the auxiliary pump. Salazar came on the CB briefly to thank them and to say the manual pump was buying them time while they cannibalized parts from an old-school district generator that had not been wired in when the pulse hit. That was your tax dollars at work in a way no one planned for. But I was glad someone had ordered that generator years back. The hospital was still standing, still full. Kara reported that they had moved as many patients as they could to rooms that stayed cooler and that families were camped in hallways with paper fans. A couple of ventilator patients had died when backup batteries failed. She did not linger on details. She did not have time. I kept my own family on a tight routine. Morning chores, midday heat rest, afternoon neighborhood watch, evening CB check-ins. It sounds rigid, but routine is armor. It fills the hours so fear does not win every minute. For you, sitting in whatever room you turned into your bunker, I recommend you do the same. Even something simple like breakfast, water check, 10 minutes of listening for news, 1 hour of chores, 1 hour of rest will help. Drifting through days and a days will get you hurt. We are only 2 days into this in my telling, and already you can see the pattern. Infrastructure that used to be invisible is now front and center. Water plants, hospitals, food depots, refineries. Some are holding together with patches and human effort. Some are failing. All of them were built on the assumption that electronics would keep doing their quiet work forever. That assumption is gone. On the personal level, people are discovering what they really have, not the stuff in the bank account. That is just numbers in a machine that is off. The stuff in the cabinets, in the garage, in their heads. Skills mean more than status now. The neighbor who can fix a small engine or sew up a wound suddenly outranks the guy with a corner office. Remember that when you start valuing who you listen to. I'm going to keep talking into this CB until these batteries give up or someone officially better equipped takes over the airwaves. I do not know if that will be tomorrow, or next week, or next month. What I do know is this. You are hearing my voice from a truck in a driveway in Odessa, Texas, in a country that just had the plug pulled on its toys. Things are bad. They're going to get worse before they get better. But you can make choices right now that mean you are still around when better comes. Stay off the main roads unless you must move. Form small, tight groups you trust. Take care of your water. Do not look at every neighbor as an enemy, but do not assume every stranger is a friend. Use your head before your gun. This is still Mark Ellison, long-haul driver, husband, dad, amateur radio voice, signing off for a short stretch to rest my throat and check on the folks on this street. I will be back on Citizen Band Channel 19 with more from the roads and the neighborhoods as we learn to live in this new quiet. Until then, breathe, think, and stay in the light when you can.